All right, here we go.
Okay, we are recording, and I think the levels are good. Right.
Check 1, 2.
Yep.
Sound good to you?
It does.
Do I sound okay?
You sound awesome. Are you a podcaster?
Welcome to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX. Here are your hosts, the radio vagabond, Palabo, and TBEX CEO, Rick Calvert.
Welcome to Travel Matters, and hello, Rick. I was just about to say good morning because it's morning here in Australia, but it's you're about to
almost evening for me. Yeah, yep, late afternoon for me.
And second question: what day is it? No, it's I'm a day ahead of you. So yeah,
I'm a yesterday for you.
Yeah, you're yesterday. Yeah,
you're in the future.
But so good to see you again. And I forgot to ask you last week when we had the episode with Kulas. How was your New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve was really good. The kids lasted till about 11:30.
Oh, so close.
They really wanted to get to midnight, but they just couldn't quite get there. But that was great.
Yeah. And now you ask, how was mine?
How was your New Year's Eve, Palais, since you're talking from the future?
I was on a boat in Sydney Harbour watching the spectacular fireworks.
Really?
Yeah. The best fireworks I've ever seen, and I had a front row seat. It was unbelievable.
Are the fireworks in Sydney famous like all the time, or you just caught a particular version of the fireworks?
A bit of both. It's famous all the time, but since they haven't been able to do it, they had 2 years of not doing the fireworks. Then they did like going really crazy, and I actually pulled up the numbers here. They had more than 100,000 individual effects.
Really?
They used 7 tons of firework, and it cost 5.8 million Australian dollars, so almost 4 million USD or euros. So
wow.
Yeah, it was big. And they had 2. They had one at 9 o'clock, kind of for the kids, even though that was big as well, but so that the kids who fall asleep at 11:30, they have seen something.
Yes.
And then they had the big one at midnight, and it just went on for 15 minutes, and unbelievable. Yeah.
And you said you were on a boat, and I've seen fireworks on a boat before. Were you pretty close to where they were shooting them off to, so they're looking straight up to see them?
Yeah, we were still far away enough. We were kind of behind the Sydney Opera House, and with a great view to the Sydney Harbour Bridge, where they had a lot of the effects. It became like a waterfall at some point, just with the fireworks and blowing, but it was all over. It was all around us, so unbelievable.
Definitely share some pictures.
Yeah. And then I brought my Insta 360 camera and had the settings for fireworks. But then when the next day I was going to take it off the the SD card, the card didn't work. It was corrupted. So it was like, no.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not the luckiest person in the world with that camera.
At least it didn't go into the water.
Not this time.
So you're improving.
I am improving, but it's my third Insta 360 in less than a year. So I plan to hold on to this one.
Good.
We are back with more from TBEX Asia, recorded in Phuket in... When was that? Late November?
November, yeah.
Yeah. And we had a lot of interesting interviews. And in this episode, we have 2 interviews. It's Sharon Gourlay.
Sharon Gourlay.
Yeah, and Megan Singleton. And this time I said Megan the right way.
Yes, you did.
Not Megan. So Sharon, she's an SEO expert, right?
Yeah. So Sharon is a blogger. She actually runs, I think, 20-something sites.
Yeah.
And she's always having new ideas and launching new sites. And yes, she has spoke at TBEX about SEO several times. But this time she spoke, topic was how to gain readers, influence, and monetize with destination sites. So a site about a particular destination. And she has several of those herself. So she talks a little bit about that with us on the podcast here. Okay, we are back at TBEX Asia 2022 here in Phuket, Thailand, and our guest is Sharon Gourlay. Did I say it right, Sharon?
It's Gourlay, but that's okay.
Gourlay?
Slightly different. My husband can't even say it. Like I kept my maiden name.
Is he Australian?
But he can't say it. Yeah, he's Australian. But
is
it's my
your,
name.
But is your last name Australian? What is that? Where's it from?
It's actually the Scottish spelling of a French name.
I was going to say it sounds French.
But that would have been spelt different.
Okay.
But for some reason, when they got off the boat, they got the other spelling.
So Sharon, we haven't seen you in a few years now because of COVID.
Yeah.
But you've spoke at TBEX before, and you are speaking this time on how to gain readers, influence, and monetize with destination sites. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, but it's very exciting.
I saw your talk yesterday, or at least part of it. But can you explain to people a little bit what it was you were talking about?
So I was really talking about how to grow a business out of your destination site. So by that I mean sites that are on a specific country, city, region, like a smaller area than like the world or Asia or something like that. And sort of the advantages of that, about how when you're more specific with who you're targeting, really a lot of things like getting traffic and monetizing and creating fans out of your readers can be a lot easier because you know your audience better and you're not trying to appeal to everyone.
You've got a more narrow focus.
Yeah. So it can be easier when it comes to monetization. Like when you look for partners or whatever, it's easy to find brands that have the same crossover. You get to know your audience really well. So we talked about like many different ways you can monetize in sort of unique ways that you could come up with for just your audience based on your destination and your knowledge of that and your knowledge of your audience. So things like I recently on my Malaysia site launched like a taxi booking service for long distance taxis across Malaysia, which is a common way you can travel there, but it can be hard to access as a foreigner and it's not currently bookable online. So just trying to think about ways you can really elevate your destination site so that it's so much more than a blog and it's so helpful and also lucrative.
How many sites do you run yourself?
I keep being asked that. I reckon it's like 15 or 20.
No
It's
way.
absolutely crazy. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's not my recommendation.
How is that even possible?
Yeah, a lot just sit on the back burner, right? Because usually I start new sites to grow them and sell them, a lot of them. Some I want to keep, like my Malaysia site. And so usually I would grow them. So spend about 18 months working on them to grow them up, get traffic. It's usually about SEO and affiliate marketing for me, and then sell them at around the 3-year mark. But with COVID, it just sort of became hard to sell them. So now I just have lots.
Well, that's interesting because we've talked here before about selling your site. So you've sold multiple sites.
Yes.
And so you have a kind of strategic plan when you start to say, this is my market, this is what this site's going to be about, and you have a plan. Yeah.
So it's like I know what I need to do. It changes over time and you see how well the site does. Like I can think, it needs that much content. But, if it does really well, I'll probably put more content or whatever. But yeah, it's about trying to build it in those first 18 months and then be really hands-off so it's worth as much as possible. But I don't do that so much for my travel sites.
The sites are all travel related?
No, they're a variety.
Okay.
My travel ones I'm usually more attached to. But I did sell my major travel blog.
So I think of you, Sharon, as a SEO expert and affiliate marketing expert. Did you start off that way, or how did you get to be where you're at today?
I actually started my first blog, the one I did sell, my first travel blog in 2005. So
you started as a travel blogger?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even think it should be called a blogger back then. It really was like an online journal is what I would call it more.
Yeah.
That I'd make my family and friends read to see what we were doing.
And you said back in 2015?
No, 2005.
2005. Oh, yeah, OG.
Yeah, I'm OG. So in 2013, I'd been reading a lot of family travel blogs and I wanted to travel my kids. And then I, found out about being a digital nomad. I'd never heard that expression before that. And it all just was something I wanted. So I actually decided to get serious about my blog. I rebranded it Family Travel. And
so it started more as a hobby for you too, and became more of a business over time.
Yeah, so in 2013 when I really strongly decided, like that's when I started my site Digital Nomad Wannabe. It was about me. At that point I was like, if I want this other life, I just need to do it. So I started that blog to sort of document my journey, which now it's more like to help others.
And did you and your family become digital nomads?
Sort of. Like in 2015, or just at the end of 2014, I somehow convinced my husband, even though I was only making like, say, $500 a month, to quit his job that he loved.
Wow.
Moved to Malaysia.
You dove in.
Yeah, I was like, I just was so confident I could do it, but I needed the time. You know, and in Australia, childcare's so expensive. I had 2 little kids. My husband worked full time. I just couldn't get enough time. So it's like, if you just give me the time, you know, I'll do it. And it did. It took off so much over that year. In fact, even the first month I was away, like we were just aiming for 3,500 Australian dollars to live in Malaysia really well. Like I did that the first month.
Yeah. So your husband quit his job. Did he just do nothing, or did he help
watch
you
the kids, or he helped
the kids?
you?
And,
he watched the kids a bit. We tried working together, but for us that was like
that's
not
really
a
hard
recipe
for a lot of
marriage
people.
Success.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to stop that.
Did he find a nomad job as well?
No, he was doing like a little bit of coding and stuff because he's a computer programmer, as I used to be.
That could be a nomad job.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier now because thanks to, you know, the one good point of the pandemic was that he works from home now, you know, and that's very common where we live. In fact, it's like people are like, if you make me go back, we'll quit. You know?
So you had some programming skills when you started. One of the questions I was going to ask was, you said you call it a journal, not a blog, and I hear you intentionally call it sites, not a blog. So you were coding your sites from the beginning?
Yeah, my first blog, my online journal, I actually started on a platform called getjealous.com. I don't even know if that still exists.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. But then only after a couple of months of doing that, I actually did code. I was a web developer. I actually did code the whole site and did it all myself.
Wow.
It looks pretty ugly if you look at it on iPad.
Well, the tools that you had then are just nowhere comparable. So did you eventually progress to TypePad ever? Or was it straight to WordPress when that came around? Or
I went from my own site to Blogspot.
Yep.
And then I went to when I got serious, I went to self-hosted WordPress.
So you didn't ever use Drupal?
No.
But you started in HTML.
Yeah,
so cool.
ASP.
So
how did you learn SEO? Were you self-taught with that? Did that come along with your programming skills, or did you learn that over time? Did you go to conferences to learn?
When I started getting serious about blogging and I heard about SEO, I guess it was something that always gelled with me. Like I was like, I could understand how that would work. You know, if you could rank at the top of Google, of course you're going to get traffic, right? So it really seemed like the way to go for me from the beginning is the way I would generate traffic. And I read heaps of blogs on it. I signed up for some really expensive courses,
online courses.
Yeah, I always really value self-education. I think there's nothing better you can spend your money on. That's
good reason to come to TBEX.
Well, exactly right. But TBEX was a long way away from me.
Yes, so, it was way before.
So it was like a combination of that, and then just experience. You know, like you learn a certain amount, and then
you notice trends. This worked, this didn't work.
Yeah, because everything you learn in SEO, it's like general rules, right? And then you have to apply it to your website. So the only way you learn that is by practice.
By doing it.
And analyzing.
And what I heard you say this in your talk yesterday, things that might work for one site may not work on another site the same way.
Yeah, or like things like I was saying in my talk with the destination sites, it's like you have such an advantage. You know, my site in Malaysia, if I see a keyword and it's all general travel sites in that top 10, then there's a really good chance I can get in that top 10. It doesn't matter how authoritative they are because, you know, I'm the authority on Malaysia. So there's all things like that too. There's like exceptions to every rule, I guess. But overall, I did just love SEO because it is an algorithm. You know, I was a computer programmer. I was also a maths teacher. Like that's the way my brain works. So that gelled with me as well.
You've sold several sites now. How do you find the buyers for a travel site or any website?
Is there a marketplace for that?
Yeah, there's quite a few marketplaces. So the main ones where I've sold them are like Empire Flippers and FE International. You know,
Can you say that again?
FE International. That's where I sold Where's Sharon, my major.
And the other was
blog.
Empire for Biz?
Empire Flippers.
Oh, Empire Flippers. Okay.
Yeah. And there's Flipper, of course, but that's like more bottom of barrel stuff. You'd avoid that if you could.
Yep.
They do take 15%, so they take a nice cut, but it makes it so easy, like all the legal paperwork, contracts, they do the negotiation. Sometimes you talk to the buyer. But yeah, no, it is somewhat straightforward. I mean, it's a bit of work to list a site because you have to show so much data and prove every dollar you've earned and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it was worth it for me.
Very good. And now that COVID's over, you're here, obviously. Are you traveling much again yet? Or
we've travelled a fair bit this year, actually, after being locked up in Australia. Like, we went to Europe for 3 months. We had a big family trip driving around over their summer. And yeah, I was in Singapore last month for ITB and now here for TBEX. It's really great.
Awesome.
To be in the world.
Absolutely.
Since we met the first night, when you told me about your podcast, I've listened to a few episodes, and it's really good and really interested if you're into blogging. It's called Making Money Blogging from Digital Nomad Wannabe. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, first of all, thank you. Yeah, I actually started that right when TBEX Catania was cancelled. I was like really depressed that I wasn't going to get to go do that. So I actually, like, my husband's like, you need a timeout kind of thing. So I actually went to a hotel.
And he gave you a
for
microphone.
A few nights. No, I was like, I need something positive to come out of this.
Yeah.
And I actually decided to start my podcast. You know, it'd been on my mind for a long time. Yeah. But I spent like 3 days and, like, you know, recorded like some programs, you know, did all the research, tried to understand podcasts a bit better. Yeah, I mean, I do just love teaching. You know, I was a teacher, like I said, but I love teaching. I didn't enjoy being a teacher. There was just a lot of work and BS around being a teacher.
The bureaucracy of it all. Yeah,
and how much is expected, especially when you've got your own kids and you just don't have time for all of it. So yeah, I love doing my podcast and all of that. I like being able to teach, or same being here at TBEX. I love getting the opportunity to teach and do that part of what I love doing.
And you're teaching something that you love.
Yeah.
And you know will help people improve their lives and their careers.
You know, I can't even, especially saying like SEO, which I do love. It's like I struggle to even say SEO without wanting to smile. Like, I really enjoy it.
That's a little strange, Sharon.
I know, I'm a big dog.
And what I like about it, because SEO for me is still super complicated, but you explained it. You didn't talk over my head like you should know that. It was like, okay, I can. So I'm going to listen to a lot of that too.
Thank you.
I feel like I have a lot to learn.
You do a very good job. I know you've given a workshop at TBEX before of explaining things, you know, where people who have a layman understanding or coming at it from beginner can understand why it's important, the things you're telling them to do, why they should do it.
Yeah.
And then they can implement and see results pretty quickly. You know, we have another speaker, Sante Akili, who's been here several times. He talks theoretical stuff about SEO, which is really high level, but you got to have a foundation before you even understand what the heck he's talking about.
Yeah.
You know, and you definitely provide that for people.
I try.
It's because she's a teacher.
And your newsletter is excellent as well. How do people sign up and get your newsletter?
If you go to digitalnomadwannabe.com, there are lots of places to sign up. I'm trying to think what's a good call out.
But if we go to digitalnomadwannabe.com, you'll see a place to sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, or there's things like talking about SEO. What's really popular is if you go to the training section on the menu, there's a 7-day link building challenge. So if you want to get into SEO and learn more about link building, that's one that's been very popular.
That might be good for me.
Yeah, it's like a good way to like get yourself started. You know, like every day you're meant to build 2 links, and I'd like tell you how. You know, just so you. Yeah, actually, I do it myself. Like, a couple of times a year, I go do it myself just to get myself back in the zone of that.
Something we've had people talk about at TBEX is going back and revising your old content.
Yep.
Do you talk about that? Do you practice that on your sites?
Yes. Actually, probably my article on Digital Nomad Wannabe too that's the most popular is one about how to do it in 15 minutes that can have a really big difference, which is about going to like Search Console and finding keywords you already rank for that aren't in your articles and just adding them can make a big difference. But yeah, usually annually, any content on my sites that's performing well, so say more than 400 page views a month ongoing, we'll get an update. So it'll be more keywords, like from Search Console, like I said. It'll be making sure everything's up to date, of course, and I usually try and change about 10% of the content. So like add some more things to do, or, you know, like something. There's always something that needs changing.
Do you have a position on dating your content? You know, you can choose whether to...
Do you have a position on dating?
No.
Yeah, no, I was confused.
No, on publishing... No, when you publish an article, you can choose... You know, there's a setting to include the date that you published the article or not include the date. I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to see studies on this because I'm only going off my own gut feel. which is that you should have a date, right? Like, because I don't trust content when I don't
Me
see a
neither.
date.
I hate it when there's no date.
Yeah, and it can often in Google, in search results, show the date by the entry as well, you know? So, I mean, if you have a really old date, it's probably better to have no date, right? But if you're keeping your content updated, like, why wouldn't you want it to show up with, like, a date that's, like, in the last year or something? Like, to me, that would get more people clicking.
But what if you revise your content? Do you change the date?
I do change the date. It has, like, one time it got me in big trouble because it's like I missed something that had changed at an attraction, and someone was really upset because they'd paid for tickets and they thought there was this whole kid area and there wasn't.
Oops.
Yeah.
I mean, mistakes happen, obviously.
Yeah.
That was a great follow-up question, by the way, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I think that's the risk you run when you update the date when it's not fully written.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's once, right? I don't know how many articles I've put in the world. Thousands, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Sharon, we really appreciate you being here, and we're so happy that you could come now.
Yes, so
they've let you free in Australia. And we can't wait to see you back again next time. Your sessions are some of the highest rated that we have at TBEX. People really get a lot out of and I saw your room was also full yesterday. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience and knowledge with us. And one last time, if you want to say where people can find you.
So you can see all my tutorials about blogging, especially like SEO and affiliate marketing, at DigitalNomadWannabe.com.
Excellent.
I'll put all the links in the episode note. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon.
See all the links mentioned in this episode in the show notes and on tbexcon.com/podcast.
That was Sharon Gourlay. Interesting conversation. And the next guest, Megan Singleton. What can you say about her?
So Megan this time was speaking about extraordinary creative collaboration ideas for content creators and DMOs. So it's how do DMOs and creators work together to create content, right? Yeah. So that's a win for everybody. Yeah. And this was a very popular session actually in Phuket. So that was a very good conversation we had with Megan. Megan, like vegan, Singleton.
Yes, it is.
That's how she explained it to me, and I'm sticking with it.
So it's not Megan, it's Megan.
Well, you see, I first went to the States in the 80s, and back then, vegans didn't exist. You know, so people called me Megan, like Reagan, because he was the president at the time, but it was spelled differently. So now I can say to people, it's Megan like vegan, and they go, I get that. I get that now.
Absolutely.
There you go.
I will never forget that.
So Megan gave a talk called Extraordinary Creative Collaboration Ideas for Content Creators and DMOs.
That was Shane's title.
That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful.
I said to him. He needs to shorten that one down.
I said it was a mouthful.
He does write some long titles.
Yeah, and I went back and I said, I think it's a bit long. He goes, no, I like it.
Should he just call it DMOs Give Us Money? No,
I'm talking about creative collabs that are going to exponentially increase the return you're going to provide the brand. In a nutshell, which took me 45 minutes to say, I work with a brand, I write some content for them that's going to be evergreen, I share it on socials, and I ask them to give me 2 nights accommodation or whatever it might be. I'm assuming I'm working with a hotel at this point, and I run a contest for my readers. I charge them, and I charge them for like $200 of Facebook ads. And then I invest that and we promote that whole contest. So firstly, the blog post remains evergreen, right? So I've got a collab underway at the moment on 5 gorgeous places to stay on Waiheke Island, which is a beautiful island in Auckland, New Zealand. And so that content is going to be there forever. I've embedded the contest using the Facebook contest.app. You can now use lots of other apps, but that used to be the only one you were legally allowed to use to do a Facebook ad. And then I add in questions that include, would you like to subscribe to the Blogger at Large newsletter? And the key is how you phrase the answers, right? So then I say, one answer is, yes, please, I love travel. No need, I'm already subscribed, and no thanks. Because that no thanks is quite brash and no one really likes to be that guy, right? And then then I add another set of opt-in optional questions. Would you like to receive Be My Guest Waiheke Islands newsletters? And then I put, yes, please keep me in the loop. No thanks. And I put a screenshot up today from today's current collab, 70% opt-in rates for the brand.
Wow.
So when you can deliver not only eyeballs and social sharing and inspirational images, but you can then send them a tangible Excel spreadsheet of 1,000 newsletter subscribers, suddenly they're interested in working with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's it. Took me 45 minutes to say that, Rick.
Well, now we know, Megan. We don't need to have you come back. You've just done it.
Yeah, don't need to ever come back again. And off you go.
But I'm curious, was the yes please box already ticked?
No, nothing's pre-ticked. No.
That is interesting.
And
wow,
with
70%.
With the app that I'm using, it also encourages people to share it because they get an extra entry into the contest if they share it. The app can track that, and it also can track any of their friends that participate. They get an extra entry for that. So it really does encourage that. So for me, I'm getting an increase in my own Facebook growth because they're all sharing and then people are beginning to follow me, and I've picked up probably 100 new followers in the last 5 days. And my blog is getting exponentially more eyeballs on it because the giveaway causes people to rush around and want to enter the draw. So now that traffic's going up. And then I'm also inviting people to sign up to my newsletters. So combined with my yes please, I want your newsletters, and no need, I'm already subscribed, about 85% are coming on board with me.
So you're building your list and their list at the same time.
Yeah, totally. Because normally you would just build your own list. Would you like my newsletters? And people don't even think about that as, what else could I do with that question? Could I help a brand and add an extra value? Could I become a triple threat? Could I do social, content, and newsletter database? Yes.
Which goes back to our theme, Pale. You don't own Facebook.
Yeah.
You don't own TikTok.
No.
You own your site. You own your email list.
Yes.
This is why brands are so excited to work with you and get that.
And it comes down to what's the value of your prize. You know, you're asking people to give you their email addresses. So if you're only giving away, I don't know, a packet of crisps, you're not going to get
a sandwich,
people to, give you that. So you will
But a free trip to Waikiki.
Yeah, when you test your own audience, you'll find where that is. Like I run a couple of online stores, and so I've given away like a piece of luggage or a cashmere blanket, and that will also get me some good amount of extra traffic and extra subscribers and extra Facebook fans.
Yeah, something that represents the brand.
Yeah, I think it has
that's
to be
valuable.
About a couple of $100 tends to be about the right price point and up. Yeah. And then the budget, so that is very key. So, I set up my Facebook, my demographic around the audience that I also am drawing. So they're already people. So for me, it's women 35 plus. And actually, I've set this ad up for 40 plus. And so they're already people that are going to be warm to what I have to offer them going forward.
How often can you do this as a creator and not exhaust your audience?
That came up, actually. Do you know, since COVID, this is the first one I've run. I think you could do one once a month. I mean, it would depend. You would watch your numbers. But, I mean, if I'm doing a $200 Facebook campaign, that's not saturating the market.
Yeah.
So another $200 Facebook campaign might get a whole other entire group of people.
Yeah. It sounds like... and so how did you come across this?
I invented it, Rick.
Good for you.
I don't know anyone who's doing it, honestly. But I thought, I agree with you, you own your list. And I thought that's a value add I could bring to make myself stand out from other people that are trying to collaborate. Yeah. I just got to keep thinking out of the box, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a brilliant value add, like you said, for your brand, for the DMO's brand, or whoever you're working with, your partner, and for your audience.
And I am kidding about that. I invented it. There is nothing new under the sun.
Of course.
So before you get all the haters,
but you didn't.
No,
you just had the idea, which I'm sure other people have the idea as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I missed your session because I can't clone myself, but that's why I'm so happy that's the virtual ticket, so I'm going to be watching it online and really be taking notes. That's something I want to try to do.
So, Megan, what is your site called?
bloggeratlarge.com.
And we'll find you under that handle on
everywhere.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
I hate Twitter's guts. I told everyone. They're just people who hate the government and rant. In New Zealand anyway, that's all Twitter users do. I actually find I have a very engaged Facebook audience, and that's what I try and nurture and grow. I find Instagram, I don't really get how, if it doesn't push traffic to your website, what's the point of it? I mean, it's pretty, but Facebook for me.
It's another really good point, because we've asked of several people, what social channels they're on. Not every channel is for every person.
No.
You don't have to be on everything. The ones that work for you are the ones that make sense for you.
Yes. Yeah. And you can't be everywhere at all times. And you know what? It's got to be easy and enjoyable. And that was some of the questions that came up in the end of my session. They're like, oh my gosh, how long did it take you to put this one together? And I went, a couple of hours. I'm like, what? And I mean, just do it easy. You don't have to start with, if you don't know any hotel brands that will give you 2 nights, just start with a blanket. I mean, just start.
And then you have a proof that this works.
That's right. Exactly. And while you build up some testimonials and exactly, some case studies. Yeah.
Well, Megan, we really, really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing some valuable info with your peers here at TBEX.
Awesome. I've loved it.
And I'm advocating for TBEX coming to New Zealand at some point. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yes. Bring it.
There's not much to see, but...
Yeah. I know. You'll be so bored. Yeah.
It would be a trip of a lifetime for many of us, absolutely.
Do you think we're a bit far away to get the numbers that you've got here, though?
Not at all.
Really?
I think people, if we did an event in New Zealand...
people would stay
or
long.
Australia, people would come from all over. This would be their excuse.
Yes.
And they would stay for at least a month, I think.
Yeah, wow. Well, we need them. We probably need a few waiters and baristas first, but hopefully we'll be set up for you by the time you bring your TBEX down.
I hope to get there in a couple of months before I have to be in Greece for TBEX. So that's the plan.
That's the life.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, Megan. And we'll see you at the next one, maybe in New Zealand.
Yay. Hope so. Thanks,
Was that
guys.
a teaser or what? Thank you. And that was all for this episode. 2 interesting speakers, 2 interesting guests on the podcast, and really inspiring stuff there. Yeah,
I mean, more great speakers that we had in Thailand, which we had just rave reviews about the speakers in Phuket. So it was great to talk to both Sharon and Megan.
Yeah. Next week, we have some people that you and I know on a personal level. One is Scott Gurian, who's a travel podcaster.
We've been waiting to see Scott for a long time, who you know, but who I had been waiting to meet for a long time.
I introduced TBEX for Scott and told him about it, and he was also actually in Tri-Cities, so it was his second TBEX, but as an attendee.
Yes.
Scott is a really talented radio producer and podcast producer. He worked for public radio in the US for many years, and does this amazing travel podcast called Far From Home, where he does some really interesting stuff.
A very interesting guy, and he comes at it from a different angle than most people, and that we love talking to people like that who do something unique from the crowd.
And I went to New York, and he showed me around. And another is Maria Haas, that you know from San Diego.
And you know too, you just don't remember meeting her.
Okay. Are we going there? Are we going there? Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help
In next week's episode, when we speak to Maria, you will hear me being so embarrassing, because we were having this conversation and I did not remember that I actually had lunch with her and her husband. So, I was thinking of editing that out because it's so embarrassing, but now I'm going to keep it in.
When you travel as much as you do, Pale, and you were in a new country all the time, I could see where, you could lose track of things. But you did remember the lunch.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I did remember meeting her. I just did not remember that it was from San Diego. I thought it was from another TBEX because there's so many faces that you see only at TBEX. And then, but really embarrassing.
Anyway, it was a good story, so I'm glad you didn't cut it out.
Yeah. So, Scott Gurian from Far From Home podcast and Maria Haas coming up in the next episode of Travel Matters. Rick, see you next week.
See you next week, Pally.
You've been listening to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX. This episode of Travel Matters was hosted by TBEX CEO Rick Calvert and Radio Vagabond Palabo and produced by radioguru.co.uk. See more about upcoming TBEX events on tbexcon.com. You can follow Palabo on theradiovagabond.com.